What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series, we are going to be going over exiting our game. So you'll see here that we have an exit button now on our main menu. So previously we had battle and options, and now we have the exit button. I'm going to be doing this one live with you, so I can't actually exit yet, but when we press the exit button, we are going to close the game. And this will work both in the editor and outside the editor in a packaged build. So it should be a very simple episode, but of course it's also a very important one. We need to actually close our game some way, and we want to do so gracefully. We don't want to just crash the program or force the program to be killed. We just want to be able to close it safely and as intended. Now, before we hop into this episode, if you want to get caught up in the entire series and see how we've done things from our character select screen to our hitboxes and game modes, I'll link you to the entire Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series right here in the top right corner. You can see how we've done all that and a lot more. Alternatively, if you only care about the exit button and closing out of your game when you're done with it, I still recommend that you watch the main menu episode in this series because we are going to be building on top of that logic today. So if you're familiar with how our main menu works in our platform fighter, you will be able to follow along with this episode very easily. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. Now, this is a code and blueprint tutorial series, but everything is going to be done in the main menu widget today. So it's going to be all in blueprints. So specifically, we want to go to blueprints, widgets, menus, main menu. Once we're in the main menu, the first thing we need to do is actually have a button on the menu that we can press to then quit out of the game. You can call it quit, exit, whatever. You can go up to the palette and drag your button in, or if you've been following the series, you already have the battle and options buttons. You can just copy them and paste them, up to you. But I have a basic button here. It is set to be a variable because we want to be able to change the value of the style and a few other things. That way we can select this button with keyboard and gamepad input in the future. Right now we're just going to select it with our mouse by pressing it, but as with all of our menus, they will be supported by keyboard and gamepad input. So I have exit button. What I called it, I anchored it to the bottom left just because I wanted my exit button to be here. And I gave it a position of 20 and -175 for the X and Y. It's obviously up to you. You put these things how you want them, but I made the size 300 for the X and 150 for the Y. For the appearance, I put in my main menu gray button that I have, just to show you. It is just a basic texture. Nothing crazy, just the button that I made is what I use for my options button. But I did change the tint on this one. So instead of having an image for each of my colored buttons, like how I have a red button for my battle option and a gray button for my options option, I just changed the color through the tint. You can do this with any color or any button. So if you open up the tint section, you have your RGB values. If I make them all 1.0, it modifies the image that I have, which is my gray button, and gives it a white value, so it's even lighter than the options button. If I want it to be red, I could take away the green and the blue, and I would have a red button, very similar to the red button I have here. And so because I didn't want to keep making buttons in UI for all of my different colors that I wanted, I just went ahead and made the tint black. So that is 0 on the RGB and 1.0 on the A or the alpha. Then for the hovered, it is the same thing as my options button. We are using our main menu gray button, hover. And for the tint, I should go ahead and make these all black as well, because I did not do that. So now it won't change colors while hovering over it. And pressing it also should have a style. I never implemented a style for the other buttons yet in the series, so I'm not going to do it for today's episode. We'll catch all these in a separate pass, but for now this is fine. So I have my exit button. On that button, I have a text element called exit button text. Exit as the text. The font family is the same as my other fonts for my other buttons, so I'm using Roboto, bold size 72 with outline size 2. Of course, make these values whatever you want. And the rest should be the same. Just so we're clear, I'll show you the exit button. Scroll the whole way down, but the rest is also the same on this button. At this point, we're ready to fill out logic when we press the exit button. We can click on the exit button in the hierarchy here and scroll down to the bottom and go to events and press the plus next to on pressed. So this is if we're clicking it with a mouse or if we're pressing it with a keyboard or gamepad input while it's focused. So I like to do on pressed, and you can press plus here to fill out your own logic for it. So when I come in here, there's a very simple node we can call quit game. this node will know to quit out of our game. Again, this works in the editor and in packaged builds, so it's really useful. Now it has a parameter of specific player. This is the player controller that we want to quit the game. So in a multiplayer scenario or a split screen scenario, in a scenario where we have multiple players, different player controllers, you can tell a specific player controller to quit the game. If you leave it blank, then it will default to 0, which is the same as get player controller and just leaving it like this. So it's up to you how you want to set it up. It doesn't really matter. For me, I'm just going to assume that we want to quit player index 0 right now. So this works perfectly fine. Or you can leave this blank. It doesn't matter. The next thing you have is your quit preference, which means do I want to actually quit and exit the game, or do I want to put it into the background? If I move the application to the background, it does not really close. It just goes into a suspended state while it waits for the user to activate it again. This is also up to you. If you wanted it to go into the background, that would work. And then you have this ignore platform restrictions boolean, which is meant for certain platforms, such as special cases where consoles don't want you to quit the game, or you're going to be using something like the console's API to close the game and you don't want to just close it this way. So typically you default to false, but if you do want to always force this to be true, you can check this boolean. That is an option that you have. So now when we compile and save our game, we can press play, and we can go over and hover the exit button. It now is the proper color. Select it by clicking with the mouse, and you'll see that it quits the game. If I set it to be background, and I compile and save and play, and I go to exit, you won't notice any difference in the editor, but you will notice differences in package builds. Because the application will not close, it will just go to the background. So if you package, you can test that out. So there we go. You may want to play a sound effect, add a delay. In our fighting game, we have a little pop-up asking you if you're sure you want to quit. That's a very common method. But this is the most basic way that you can quit your game. One additional thing I want to do that's unrelated to quitting the game, but is related to the series itself, is I want to rename the main menu widget to main menu screen. Just so it is clear, because when I have the main menu level open and then I have the main menu screen widget open, it can look a little weird, and then also it is more consistent with our other menus. Now, another thing I want to do is a little bit of cleanup for our menu items here. So our battle button and our options button have our style appearance here, and I want to make everything uniform. So on our battle button, we have the normal style being drawn as a rounded box, and then the hover style being drawn as an image. In the graph, specifically our set focus to menu item, we are manually choosing what we want to draw these buttons as. So when we're resetting the button to the normal image, for example, if it's hover, we're using image, just like we were in the design view. But if it's the standard button, we're also using image. So we could change this to rounded box if we want, but I want everything to be image. I don't actually need this little rounded box around each of my buttons because that is visible. If I set it to image, this outline goes away. So I'm going to go to each of my buttons and just change these draw as fields to image. So it's going to be that for the standard and the hovered version. So same with the options button. And same for the exit button. And the design view will line up with our graph logic, which just keeps everything clean, and it looks a little bit better too. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you learned how to quit your game, both in packaged builds and non-packaged builds. If you're interested in checking out the rest that the series has to offer, or my other series, and you're interested in supporting the channel, then please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do. And if you want to support me further, you can check out the Patreon and get some extra benefits. I'll link you to the Patreon page right there in the top right corner. If you ran into any problems while following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you with any problems you ran into. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.